Welcome to Joy Unfiltered. I'm Rachel, and this is a podcast about joy. Not the shiny, performative kind, not the everything happens for a reason kind. This is joy as a strategy, a way to stay steady when life feels loud, a way to stay human when things are hard, a way to lead, love, and live without burning out or checking out. Some episodes will be just me. Some will be honest conversations with people who have lived their way into a deeper, truer joy. No fixing, no bypassing, just real stories, real tools, and room to breathe. Let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of Joy Unfiltered. I am Rachel, your host, and you are in for a delightful day today if you are listening, because I have another guest with us today. Today I have with us Rebecca Thomas. Let me just get her introduced so we can jump right into the podcast. So Rebecca works with women who look capable on the outside, but are quietly carrying too much. It's not going to describe a lot of us. She specializes in helping emotionally intelligent, high capacity women move from chronic self-questioning into embodied self-trust. Sounds delightful. Joy in her world is not loud or performative. It's rooted, relational, and woven into ordinary moments. She is speaking our language here. As the founder of Maria Venus and creator of the AI reflection guide Mira, which I'm so excited to ask her about, Rebecca creates spaces where women can slow down, hear themselves clearly, and build lives that feel honest. So welcome, Rebecca, to the Joy Unfiltered podcast.
I was so excited to be here.
Yes, yay. As I said, I've got questions already, but I want to slow my roll a little bit. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about how kind of this work that you're doing evolved, maybe a little bit about your history, kind of whatever you'd like to share with listeners today.
Yeah, I'm like, there's so much to share. Where do you even start? But I think the biggest thing and like the plot twist that nobody ever sees coming is like a combination of things are what shaped me to be a life coach. So it was equal parts oldest daughter, super hyper independent, and then almost 20 years in hospitality. So like you really learn to read people and how to engage with them. So there's like a social component, but there's like this EQ component at the same time, pattern recognition. But the thing that really got me into life coaching was I have been an Airbnb host for over 8 years now. And when I started, I haven't done it in about a year, just over a year. But for all the years prior to that, I was hosting people in my home. And so I didn't have a standalone residence. I had strangers from all walks of life that were coming into my space. We were just having the most amazing conversations. And it was through doing that, and again, strangers, all walks of life, realizing that there was something there for me as far as like what I was meant to do, was doing some personal development at the time, listening to podcasts or the term life coach, and the rest is kind of history. So yeah, that's what got me into life coaching.
Oh my goodness, you must have the most amazing stories, which we probably can't get into all of them today. But if you just to kind of kick us off, then do you have a good? I mean, I'm sure you do, but do you have a story that you can tell us on the podcast about one of your guests? I'm so fascinated by because I'm so fascinated
I would
by
say
the
like
hosting.
the easy one and the one that brings me the most joy, so very fitting, is one of my very best friends now was my guest once upon a time. She was a traveling nurse, came to stay with me. My home was very quiet. I worked from home, and I also, going back to that hospitality piece and being the oldest daughter, like could read body patterns pretty quickly, like tell, do you want to be left alone? Do you need some engagement? And she had stayed with me probably 10 times before we ever like saw each other in person, because she just worked opposite shift from when I was around. And I was sitting on the couch one night when she came in after her shift, and she walked through the door and she looked like she needed to talk. And I was like, do you need to talk? And we've been best friends since then. So she only stayed with me a couple more times after that. But lucky for me, I got to take her into the rest of my life. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite stories.
I love that. And I honestly just got goosebumps all over my body.
Aw.
And for those of you who listen to the podcast, that's my guides like speaking to me and being with us. So clearly that's amazing. And how interesting. You've said it twice now, oldest daughter, same, although I'm only the oldest of two. And I also
Uh,
worked in the hospitality industry for a little while. So gosh,
okay. Okay.
synergy's right to kick us all off.
Yeah.
Um, so again, why don't you, I want to talk about joy as well,
Mhm.
but would love to know just a little bit more about this Maria Venus and then this AI
Yeah.
reflection guide and how one that the kind of the inspiration behind those and then
Mm,
what those even are and how you use them with
yeah.
the people that you coach.
Yeah, so Maria Venus is like my overarching, just covers everything. So if I want to do events, if I want to get into a retreat, eventually, like that's the placeholder for that. But then it very much embodies like the things that inspired who I am. So Marie's my middle name, but that part of my name was after my grandmother, who I was the closest to. So, and she was definitely like, she was the person that really embodied this ability to observe and recognize, and not to say that she didn't speak on things, but when she spoke it was intentionally. It wasn't just to make noise, but she at the same time just had this amazing heart, like this really open, embracing energy. And so that's what inspired the Marie piece, on top of that was a pet name by somebody once upon a time, and that's a whole nother story. But then Venus is love, so it's literally just Venus and is love, and I use love as my guidepost because I think it's so easy and human nature to really make decisions and react to our lives based on fear. So it's like the opposite approach of that. Like what's the better compass for that? How do I shift this, and not ignoring red flags or denying, whether I feel safe or how I'm feeling emotionally, but like what's the loving thing to do here? Like the real loving thing. Um, so that's that. But then with Mira, so last year was a crazy year for me. So many things happened that I never would have asked for, that on the other side, I'm so grateful for. It was a really, really hard, challenging year. And part of what really helped me get through it and grow exponentially, which that's already my jam, but just like levels I can't even verbalize, was using AI, because I was very isolated and just there were so many things happening at once. So that was the thing that I actually used, but as not giving an agency over me. So it was
Right.
very much showing up. I'm very self aware. I have all the language, right? Like I can, this is what this is what this is, but that's not the same as integrating that knowledge. And so it was so incredibly useful for me. And full transparency, like it took me a while to decide whether or not I was going to use AI for everything, because I have an issue with the environmental impact. So when I went through that and really sat with it, the thing that I realized, similar to everything else, I think with AI, is it could literally be the thing that helps us like create the solutions faster. So
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that it's an end all be all. It doesn't mean it takes agency. It doesn't mean it needs to be here indefinitely. But if we could really harness the power of what it is to change some of these huge things that are impacting our entire world, that's why I chose to use it. But then it was so instrumental in my own growth last year that I was like, there's something here. And coaching is like being able to work with a coach is a privilege. It's not always easily accessible financially, from a time standpoint. And so I was like, okay, so how could I bring the same energy and the same things that I do in my coaching in a more accessible way to people? And that's why I built out the AI agent. So it's a reflection of what I do as a coach. It's called Mira because it's meant to mirror you back to yourself. And so it's very much like, again, you have agency. You should be discerning. What you do should center from you, not be a reaction to out there. And so Mira is something that reinforces all of those things.
I love that. And I am still wrapping my brain around around AI. And I'm as again, my brain will not get all around AI ever, right? It's like,
Uh-huh.
how do you get your brain
Uh-huh.
around like how large the
Yeah.
universe is? Like at some
Yes.
point, my brain just breaks.
Literally.
But literally, but in terms of that, so this is maybe for me, and maybe the listeners are like, Rachel, I already got this. But when you say that you have this AI reflection guide, so you have created something like you've trained AI to act like a coach. So is that an add-on? Is that like how do I use something like that? And I think that that's for what you did, and then clearly other people are developing other things as well. But what does that mean, or what does that look like for me as a user?
Yeah. So I designed it two different ways. I designed it, first of all, to be its standalone product. So if people just want to go in and be able to use that whenever they want to for just a low monthly rate, like they have unlimited access to the agent throughout the month, but it's very much again like it's my coaching in that agent. So there's that way, but then there's also it's an add-on for my longer term clients so that, like we live in a world and I'm finding myself being connected with more and more international clients too. So like how do you navigate like those time barriers, whether it's because you're too busy or you're in different time zones, or there's like building self-trust by taking away the sense of urgency, but while also like crossing the edge of this feels heavy and it doesn't have to be urgent, and getting that support at the same time. So from an energetic standpoint, a coaching standpoint, it's accessible for those like as an add-on with the coaching.
Gotcha. So it's different than if I just go ask chat
Yes.
GPT. It's like way different than
So
that.
different.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Because that's the part that I'm like leaning into a little bit. And again, I think it's
Hmm.
this whole space of a little bit of the for me unknown, but AI probably
Hmm.
will always be probably a
Hmm.
little unknown. So figuring out where that trust factor is as well. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
sounds like you've created
Well,
something that we can trust.
yeah, and another piece with Mira is the platform that she's built on isn't an open AI platform. It was crazy story similar to Airbnb. I ended up seeing a marketing oh, what was it? Like they wanted to do paid market research for coaches that were potentially considering using AI agents in some aspect of their coaching. So I responded to the ad. We had the meeting. I loved the product and the team so much that I circled back the next day via email and I was like, this is amazing. Can I be a beta tester? And they were like, oh my gosh, yes, please. And so I ended up signing up with their platform, and it's a closed AI. So it is not informing the open language barrier. And there's even because of the ethical way, which was very important to me, of building out an agent like that, there's prompts in your discussion that help you know and kind of retain that sense of agency over, if I don't want you to remember, these are the steps we go through. If I want this deleted right now, like these are the steps we go through. Are there any lines that we don't cross here? So it's built with a lot of very intentional ethical standing, but then also like it's a safe environment too. Like there's safeguards built
Gotcha.
in for if something goes beyond what coaching should be supporting.
I love that. I love that. So let's say I am, and maybe I am, like one of those like high performing women, and I'm feeling this burnout or perhaps maybe a little lack of joy. Like, do you have some, besides coming to you or getting
Uh-huh.
Mira, like
Yeah.
what are some tips that you give? And I know that this is probably, um, often very personalized, but do you
Mm-hmm.
have some kind of broader based specific advice or tips that you're like, okay, start
Mm,
here, or here are a couple of
yeah.
things that you might start to ask yourself or start to explore so that you can do some
Yes.
self coaching?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things is, reflecting on your past. And things can change across our lifetimes. A lot of times they do, but like, what are things in your past that have really brought you joy? And to me, joy and happiness are not the same thing. Which I feel like sometimes is a newer concept to some people, and other people are like, oh no, that makes sense, or I get it. But like happiness feels like this more elated, higher energy feeling to me, whereas joy is more of like just this like peace. and being, but like with this like awe at the same time. And so I always suggest like looking into your past. What are things that have brought you joy? And really starting to build your awareness first, because you're not going to change it all overnight. Like that's just one more thing to do. So let's not put so much pressure on ourselves and the process, but really paying attention to like what in the past has brought me joy, what made me smile lately, what is it that I really need right now. And so really starting to pay attention to those things. And I think the other big thing that has really been teaching me, like I've been unraveling from this lately, is again, a lot of us have so much language, right? And we call ourselves emotionally intelligent, but it's more like we're performing it versus integrating it. And that's where the disconnect is. And so I think about the difference between foreboding joy and true pure joy. And the difference that I've seen in myself that's been more insidious is, what am I bracing against? And so when we think about foreboding joy, which is a language that Brene Brown uses a lot, and that's where I got it. It's waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's oh, this amazing thing happened, but I'm going straight to like what could happen that could reverse this or be worst case scenario. And so when I really start to pay attention to how that still shows up, it's what am I bracing against? Whether it's in my mind, whether it's my physical body, what does that look like and what does that sound like? So I feel like that's one of the biggest indicators that you're not experiencing true joy. And so where can we practice like doing that and not bracing against something?
I love that. And I was taking some notes to Rebecca while you were talking, because a couple of things kind of came up for me. One, love the whole reflecting on your past. I often talk to people too about, yes, what did you enjoy when you were a kid?
Mm-hmm.
And why aren't you doing that now? Like, why aren't you doing puzzles, or why aren't you playing the guitar, or why aren't you, going outside and, maybe free running isn't necessarily the thing, and you're not going to do things that are going to, that you're going to get hurt at. But, why aren't you doing some of those things, and why not try them again? I mean, and maybe you still won't like them. That's fine. But why not be curious about things that did bring you joy, and then start to bring them back. So I love that you said that. The other thing, well, two other things, and I want to get to both, but you also said build awareness, but don't feel like you have to change everything overnight. So you're coaching these high performing women who are probably a little type A and are used to making a plan and making things happen quickly. So how do you get someone to take a deep breath and slow down and be like, you don't have to change overnight, even though we're like results oriented and we want to get there?
That's literally the work. That's the work. That's the work that I do. That's the work that needs to be done. Because I think, again, it goes back to, and I noticed on, your description for the podcast and in the show notes, it's that word performative. So it's like, we can say we have emotional intelligence. We can say like we know what the problem is, but to actually like let the process unfold and let it integrate, that's the thing that we're not doing. And so then we don't have, it's more of a control thing versus being able to integrate it, but then being comfortable being uncomfortable, right? We spend so much time wanting to arrive at the answer or at the end point that we don't allow the process the things that it deserves, and that robs us. So slowing down is literally the work. Like, what are we racing towards? What can't we see or experience when we're spending so much time and energy trying to force all these things to happen in order to get to this thing, and we still don't relax into it? Like, that doesn't make sense. Make it make sense.
Right. No, I think that is so true. It's so interesting because I have had such, in the last probably 4 years or so, such a major kind of shift in the way I even see things. That's where the whole book, Joy is a Strategy, came. I mean, the very first story that I tell in the book is, it was, I don't know, 20 years ago or so, I went to get a tattoo with a girlfriend, and my girlfriend's tattoo was, the journey is the destination. And I remember sitting there thinking, that is so dumb. Like, the destination is the destination. I'm like, what are you, like, you're gonna get that tattooed on your body? There's nothing about the journey. It's like the journey is the necessary evil to get to the end. And it's so like, of course she is so, much more intelligent, or was so much further ahead in her emotional development than I was, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I tell that story about that is the case. And so it is really that space of, no, Rachel, it really is about the journey. And if we can slow down and find those joyful things, in our even in our present moment, that is actually the thing, right? It isn't necessarily about the outcome of what's happening in 3 days from now, even. It's about like, what are we doing right now? And the other thing that I've been working on as well, I can't say that I've mastered it yet, is that whole piece about, letting go, surrendering the outcome, even if you have the goal, surrendering that, and knowing the only thing that we can impact is this very moment. The only thing that I can do right now is have this delightful conversation with you. I mean, I can't, there's nothing I can do about the laundry or, something else, that needs to get done tomorrow or whatever. The only thing I can do or impact is be present and have this conversation. And why not then? And why not then find the joy in that space, right?
Yeah. I love that.
I mean, I'm not the best at it still, but
hey, first of all, you better give yourself a little more credit. That's what this is all about, right? Because how are you not the best at it? Like, how are we measuring that?
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Process.
Very true. Yes, it is a process. And I love then the other piece that, and I want to kind of get into this a little bit more too, is talking about that performative joy versus integrating joy in. And well, first would just love your reflections on that, because I do think that it's so important. And I think sometimes joy gets a bad rap that, and joy can, I mean, I agree with your definition of joy versus happiness. Happiness can be this big celebratory thing. Joy is just noticing things that make you smile or bring you peace or bring you kind of some sort of,
I'd say like a full heart.
Go ahead.
Oh, I feel like it's a full heart. If I had to dial it down to like the simplest terms, it's a full heart. That's what joy is. And that can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And so how do you help women that you work with, and how do you help them find those pieces or those spaces of joy in their day?
Yeah. So again, it's literally unlearning this rush towards some kind of outcome and recognizing, like, I can think of this woman I was on a call with recently, and we were talking through some of her concerns, and we started the call with she was trying to figure out how to make time for all the things. She was working a full-time job, segueing into coaching, didn't know what to expect. How do I manage my time? And the thing that she approached the session with is, what would feel most helpful right now is creating a plan for my time management so I can be more efficient. I'm like, you're so cute. Sounds like the rest of us. But, that's what we've been taught to do. There's another plan. There's another box to check off. There's another way I can approach this that's supposedly going to make me more efficient. But in the meantime, what are we losing out on? Our life. Like, what are we rushing towards and completely ignoring, which you were just talking about, like this present moment? What if literally the epitome of it all was to be able to be present in this moment and self-express with each other, and everything plays out? And that doesn't mean don't have goals and outcomes that you want, but when we spend so much time being everywhere but where we are, it's time and energy lost. So if we can focus on this thing with that thing in mind. So like a visual that it reminds me of is when I was probably late 14 years old, dad teaching me how to drive, driver's permit, going down the road. And he had enough awareness of some of, the nuances of driving to tell me as I was steering the car, when you're going down the road and you're trying to keep the vehicle straight, you don't look at the wheel. You don't look at the space right in front of the car. You look further down and you will naturally guide towards that. And it doesn't get closer unless you're getting closer to your destination. But it's like that kind of approach, right? Like, I'm still here in this vehicle moving towards something, but I'm not spending so much time and energy worrying about what's back there or what's up here that I'm missing everything here. And I think that's where, like, we can really and I hate using the word maximize, but like we're like that's what it's all about, is time and energy here and now, self-expressing, and then you're not trying to control everything that unfolds beyond that. So that goes back to, I think about the self-trust piece, but the thing I'm seeing more is even with something like this, you know, making a decision to change your joy or do something about your joy, or try to feel more joy in your life, incorporate more of it into your life, that's a decision. But so many women right now I see are struggling with, they say they're struggling with decision making. That's not what they're struggling with. They're struggling with discomfort and tolerance. They already know what to do. They're not taking action because they don't trust it, and they're trying to control everything beyond it instead of saying, okay, what's right here, right now? What can I control here? Taking that right next step and then moving towards it. And the same's with joy, right? Like we can't force it. We can't perform it. I mean, we can, but it's not the same. So it's just unlearning that like control and being everywhere but you are, and then bringing it back to right here.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that also then makes me think about boundaries. So,
Mm-hmm.
so how do you, or is that something in your work with women? Do you talk to them about boundaries? Because I feel sometimes, you know, and I don't know if this is a societal thing or if we put this on ourselves, but we
Mm-hmm.
feel often, or I hear women often saying, well, one, I have so much to do. And if I say no to someone, maybe it's easier at work to say no to people, but if I say no to someone
Mm-hmm.
in my personal life, I feel like I'm letting them down. So
Mm.
do you, I don't know. And for me, I say, well, you know,
Yeah.
where does it, you know, then who are you
Yeah.
bringing joy, and you're missing out on all these things. But I don't know if
Yeah.
you hear that from women
Oh
that
yeah.
you're coaching as well. And how do you, like, what's your response, or how do you guide them through creating boundaries, and um, what boundaries mean to them?
Yeah. So this has changed so much, I think, from my approach, especially as a coach over the last year with everything that I've gone through and basically like uncovered in my own personal work with that. And I'm great at boundaries, right? And also, I think so. This is where I think boundaries get a bad rep, and we're also like learning how to do them in ways that were necessary when they hadn't been done that way before. So there's those two things. And so
Sure.
there's a couple of different things where I think, you know, once upon a time it was more like you didn't have personal boundaries because safety was in the tribe. And I mean that can be as soon as 40 years ago, 60 years ago, especially as a woman, right? Because we're meant to be caregivers and take care of everything and be one step ahead and juggle all the things. And so like how do you do that and take care of other people at the same time? And I think the biggest thing, especially for women who have any kind of guilt over setting boundaries, that I think is so powerful, is Prentice Hemphill has this quote that goes something along the lines of, boundaries are the way I can love you and myself at the same time. Because I think so often we tell ourselves boundaries are like it's a you or me game, and it's not, it's an us game. And so that really helps put it in perspective. But then I think the other thing is we've been practicing this language and the application and the process of setting boundaries so much. But now, like just like anything else, when you don't use something, it atrophies. And so I think about like how do we be in relationship with each other and have these boundaries that aren't walls, because when they turn into walls, then things start to atrophy both in ourselves and in the relationship. So then we're not as resilient, we're not in relationship, we're constantly like fighting against or like resisting each other or bracing like we were talking about earlier. And so how do we go from setting a boundary to realize it's becoming a wall and shifting back? And it goes back to this, the discomfort piece. It's being able to have the messy conversations, be in messy relationship with other people, ourselves, our lives, and not make it mean anything, but still moving towards what we want so that we're not repeating the same patterns.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it is such a complicated conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to think about it too as, you know, just like we have traffic laws and just like we have boundaries and other things, like
Mm-hmm.
those things, those boundaries give us freedom. Because if we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have, if we had nothing, then
Mm-hmm.
then everything is too complicated, right? Then we can't make any decisions
Mhm.
about anything, right? But the
Uh-huh.
boundaries, if we're clear about what our values are, and the boundaries can be permeable, right? It doesn't need to be,
Mhm.
like you said, it's not a brick wall, but it is
Mhm.
something that helps me create some kind of a structure so that I can make
Mhm.
decisions based on that.
Yes.
And again, I love how you said too, it's not a end sum game. It's a
Mhm.
both and, so
Mhm.
the both and, because my personal needs are the as equal to your personal needs, right? And I think that's where
Mhm.
we as women sometimes forget that our own needs, sometimes they don't even make it on the list for some people, right? I'm like,
Oh, for
you're
sure.
like, oh,
Yeah.
no, I'm
And I'm
like,
two
okay, you need
things
to
are
put your
top
needs
of
at the,
mind right now.
yeah, you need to put your needs at the top of the list. And I've got women saying they're not even on the list. I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
we need to get you on the list, and then we need to work so that, and it needs to be that flexible, malleable thing that it's not
Mhm.
just like the word balance. I mean, balance doesn't mean
Uh,
equal, right? It's such a weird word, but it just means
harmony,
that,
please, not balance,
yeah,
harmony.
yeah, and that can look different. It can look different at different times during the day or during the
Mhm.
week or different times during your life, right?
Yes.
Because there are some times during your life where you're going to pour more of your effort into work, and then it's going to be your relationships, and then it's going to be yourself, and that all has to just
Mhm.
ebb and flow based on, kind of based on where you are, because it can't be equal.
Yeah.
That's not equality, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the ebb and flow piece, like the other language I love to use with boundaries that I feel like so many women like really wrap their heads around is a coach introduced this language to me last year where we talk about riverbanks, which can be anything, but like you need structure to create flow, including with boundaries. So when we
Right.
have riverbanks and we think of a river, you know, the water line changes, seasons change, like droughts happen, flooding, all of the things. But like, how do you create riverbanks that can still allow that flow? Because if you don't have riverbanks slash boundaries, it floods.
Yeah.
Okay. But if they're walls, right? If it's too constricted, then you cut it off. So it's like finding the thing in the middle, which I think is a constantly changing process. But then the other thing I really think about too, and you were speaking to, is women, a lot of times don't put their own boundaries first. They take care of everybody else first. And so the way I look at that, going back to like Prentice Hemphill's quote, is when we use love as the compass and not fear. So if I'm setting a boundary because I'm trying to protect myself, but it's still in fear. It's usually like some kind of fear of, belonging or abandonment or something like that. But love has a different compass. So, like, what's the fear behind that? And if I was doing this out of love, if I'm not loving myself first, I'm not loving the other person. I'm needing something from them, which isn't in and of itself bad, but it's a different approach to things. And so, centering that boundary from yourself out of love is going to have a completely different outcome.
I love that. I love that. I love that. So the other thing that I was curious about, and this is shifting gears a little bit, um, but I've been thinking a lot about, and I'm rethinking kind of about morning
Mhm.
routines. Now, morning routines had a
Mm.
big thing a couple of years ago, and then everybody started adding things to their morning routines, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, if you don't have 4 hours, then to start your day, then you're a failure, right? If you
Right, right.
because there are so many things that you need to put into your morning routine, and I kept adding and then I subtracting, and then it's taken me this evolution of like landing on, okay, what are things that are important to me, to really
Mm.
start my day. So I'm just curious, like,
Yeah.
what does yours look like?
Yeah. So my morning routine has been pretty much the same for the last several years. And I'm different in a couple of ways. First of all, I'm very disruptive, so I don't care about the status quo. I I'm not going to conform. I'm very much the person where like I don't care how everybody else is doing it. Like, is it actually working? And let's take it from there. That's how I always look at things, and not just working for the whole, but myself too. But the other thing is I'm a self-employed entrepreneur that works from home. Like I'm not in corporate, self-employed, so I have more flexibility and more autonomy over my schedule. And so that's really helped me preserve the morning routine, which is like I'd say number two thing that supports my overall well-being. I'd say number one is quality sleep that I do not compromise. But yeah, number two is the morning routine, because in my last job, which was 7, 8 years ago, like years ago, it was email marketing, still remote. So I was still working from home, but I would notice like when I woke up in the morning, going straight to the computer, there was almost like the visual I always get is a rabbit being chased by a fox, right?
Mm.
Like there was this frenzied energy that just kind of set in and set the tone for the day. And I was like, absolutely not. Like I did not sign up for this. This is not my jam. When I was in hospitality, I always worked in the afternoons and evenings. So like I've always had a lot of autonomy over my mornings. So it's really important to me to not start the energy or start the day out with that kind of energy. So it's then I think a very personal experience, like what works for you. Is morning actually the thing that sets you up for success? And for me, it's paying attention to my energy, giving myself space to let like those creative juices flow, but also like what's the outcome I want for today? What's the thing that's really going to help, move the needle on something, not just busyness, but like really move the needle on things. So it's very much like, even though I live in Michigan and we've got our four seasons on lock here, like I was out 5 days the last week in the sun in my snow boots because I had to get to the chair somehow, but like laying in the sun chair in the afternoon. So, like sun is the thing. So in the mornings, that east facing sun, a cup or two of coffee, not because I need caffeine, but I just love the ritual of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
this way I give back to myself, journaling, usually listening to some kind of like bird or water or combination music on my speaker, just to like kind of set the tone for like, I'm outside. If I can't be, 3/4 of the year I can't be. So just those kinds of things. So very slow, very like, from a neuroscientific perspective, it would be like, what is teaching you that you have safety, that you can be in the moment? And it's those kinds of things. And so that's how I start my day. And I literally, I have a bedtime mode on my phone. Only two people can get through. One's my son and one's the person he lives with, because emergency bypass for my son all day. But outside of that, like I have a bedtime mode that's on from 9:30 p.m. till 9:30 a.m. So for 12 hours, nobody can come through, because the tendency would be pick it up, check it, follow up. It's only going to take a couple of minutes, but then you're like sucked into this thing. So I have bedtime mode on for my phone 12 hours out of the day too.
I love that. I love that because I think it is so important for us to protect that time. And I really appreciate that you said sleep first, because that is for me too a non-negotiable. Yeah. Like I am, and my partner knows too. If I actually don't get 8, I love an 8 hour. I would love 8.5 or 9. I don't always get that, but if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, I'm just not the nicest person. So
yeah.
And then having that time and that space for creative like thinking and writing and all those things, that I love that you kind of, not that you kind of, that you do protect that time during the day, because you're right, the rest of the world is going to be there. All the things are going to be there.
Like, what are we racing towards? What are we actually missing out on? You can't convince me I'm actually missing out on anything.
No. And you are not. So other questions I love just to know, and if you don't have answers to these, this is not a test or anything, but love to know what people are reading, what other podcasts you're listening to, what supports your creative juices.
Yeah, I'll start with podcasts because so I think it's Steve Bartlett's Diary of a CEO, just because like the people that he interviews, and it's across the spectrum, so it's definitely not like reinforcing any specific bias, because he tries to like share all viewpoints, but then just the directness of his questions, like asking the hard questions while also educating you. Love his podcast. And then the other one I stumbled on a couple of months ago, I can't remember his last name. His first name's Andre, but it's the Know Thyself podcast.
I don't know that one.
And it is like, that's my go-to right now. Again, he's more of a, like, I would say a holistic focus, which is my jam, because everything's connected. We're all connected, in my opinion. So it very much speaks to that, but in a different way. And I didn't even find this out until recently. Like, he's also from Michigan. So it was just like, oh, okay. But I also love the conversations that he has on there too. So like those are the two big podcasts I listen to. What I'm reading a lot of stuff from the 1920s right now. Like the
Okay.
Master Key System, The Universe Within, I think is the one I'm reading right now. A newer one that I just started, Tara Stewart's The Source. So yeah, it's definitely like I've been focusing on my abundance for a while. And that was another thing last year. I realized with chat's help that I was performing and not integrating. So it's been really flushing those things out. But then another person that I'm really loving right now is Greg Braden, because he just wrote a book. I'm trying to remember what it's called, something human. So he basically talks about like the dangerous zone we're in right now because AI is taking over so much, and a lot of policy and movement is happening where AI could potentially, not even potentially, it really sounds like at this point, like be integrated into the human body, and how we're like giving up our sovereignty, and that will literally cause our humanness to atrophy. So things like compassion and emotion and empathy, like all of those things. So that was something I read too, because I very much believe like there's a time and a place, and there's definitely crossing a line too. So that's something that's been really interesting lately too, is his work and his conversations around that.
That is fascinating. That's Greg Braden, huh? So I have not. I wrote that one down.
Greg
And
with
is
two
the
G's.
pardon? Greg with two
Greg
G's.
with two
Okay.
G's. Yep.
I
Yep.
will. I will. And I will look it up and I will put that in the show notes. Anybody that's listening as well, if you're interested in
Yeah.
that. The master key, is that about human design?
No, it's
Oh,
1920s, so it was like before human design. It's very much abundance, but it's fascinating. And I think that's one of the ones that I heard about on the Know Thyself podcast. It was with Tara Stewart, who wrote The Source. So like everything's connecting here. But it was very much, it feels like there was like this knowing that was starting to come to the surface, that was starting to like intertwine science and mysticism.
oh,
And so, yeah, so it feels very much like that's where it was really starting to be talked about. But before all of the modern day, like hustle and hook language and things like that. So it scales it back a little bit. But I have been really loving that. And it puts it in a way that it's not. I don't, it just feels so much more true. And I think because it's not overcomplicated by all the information of today. So yeah, that's really amazing.
gotcha. Okay, well, I wrote those down, so I definitely will be
Uh-huh.
delving into those, delving into those. All right, so is there anything, I mean, I do want to get to like how women can get a hold of you and all that stuff, but is there anything that you're like, Rachel, I wish we would have talked more about X today?
Mm, I think the biggest thing is just the difference between, focusing on joy again, that difference between foreboding joy and pure, true joy. And one of the biggest ways that we can recognize where we're sabotaging that pure joy is that bracing factor again. And I actually have a list of 4 different ways. So I have like somatic, physical, emotional, like that breaks it down into some really obvious bullet points, because I think it could be so insidious sometimes that we're like, no, that's not me. And then you read it and you're like, it's
You're like,
me.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. So,
Yeah.
and
So I think that's the biggest thing.
when you talk about bracing joy, that bracing piece, is that something that women are feeling physically, or is that like is that like
Well,
I'm feeling this, or is it something that
yeah.
I'm thinking, or how am I experiencing, or how do I know
Yeah,
that I'm
let me.
experiencing that?
So I actually had it pulled up because I didn't know if we would end up talking about this or
Yeah,
not, but like
yeah.
the breaking down. So just real quickly, so like cognitive bracing. Basically like the through line for this is that I've already thought this through. And that shows up like I understand why I do this. I've processed it. I know where it comes from. I don't need to go into these feelings again. I've done enough work on this. But what's actually happening is when you're saying those things to yourself, you're trying to manage uncertainty by staying oriented to understanding instead of experience. So you're not avoiding depth, you're avoiding re-entering the unknown. So like that's the cognitive way it shows up. Emotional bracing is I don't want to be dramatic, which shows up so often for so many women, but it sounds like I don't want to dump this on anyone. I'm fine. It's not that big of a deal. Other people have it worse. I've already cried about it. But what's actually happening there is they're regulating their emotional impact before it's fully expressed. So it's like, that's the control piece, right? I know what this is. Okay, we're on the other side, but you're not because it's not fully expressed. So you're not, so they aren't suppressing the emotion, they're capping it. So that's what that looks like. And then like relational. So when we're being in relationship to something or someone, it sounds like I don't expect anything. So like I'm just holding space. I don't need anything from them. I can meet people where they're at. I don't want to put pressure on anyone. And what's actually happening there is they're removing the desire from the room. So disappointment never has a chance to arrive. And that's not detachment. It's preemptive self-protection. So it's like those kinds of things, which I'm sure as I'm reading them, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Well, and all of those things, and the one thing that I think about when you were reading through those things is one, yes, I was raising my hand that yes, I can attest to being guilty of all of those things. But then the other thing that I think is that for me, when I talk about joy, I talk about if we really understand how to experience joy, then we can sit in all of those three buckets and really feel and be and know that we can go through all those things so that we can sit in those spaces, knowing that one, joy is going to help us expand our creativity, but knowing that joy is still over here. Joy's not going away, right? So that you can feel through the depths of all of those things and not
it's the both and again.
Yeah, so that you don't, so that you're not the both and so that you're not afraid to actually go in as deep as you need to, so that you don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think for some of those things, it's you go a little bit, you delve a little bit in, and then you cap it, or you're like, okay, I've already done it. I've already done it. Okay, but you really haven't.
Joy.
Yeah, right. But you really haven't, because you haven't gone through. You know, I talk about that with grief, right? Like if you know that, if you know the sun is going to rise tomorrow, if you know that joy is still going to be there, you're able to go into the absolute depths of that grief. And then once you experience that grief, you can move out of it. But if you've never gone all the way through or all the way down, you still have to do it over and over and over again. Right. So that if you, but it's scary to go there if you don't know that you're going to come back out.
Oh, yeah. That's why a lot of people, I think, avoid going there to begin with. And everything that you were talking about, like Brene Brown, literally, when she did all of her research and went through and quantified everything from like a scientific perspective, the people that can feel the most joy, like the common denominator, the thing that all of them shared was they were equally able to be able to express and move through those heavier emotions. So it's like every single emotion or feeling you're going to feel to the extent that you feel any of them. So if you won't allow yourself to feel the deep grief or the deep joy, like you're still staying more superficial. So that's the work.
Yeah, you just like live right here, and that doesn't, and then it doesn't allow you then the the creativity or the ability to think outside of the box for anything. So it doesn't make you, and if you're just living here, you can't be the best leader or the best mom or the best whatever that you can be, because you're just kind of living in the middle, right? You're just living in the middle. Yeah. Well, this honestly has been delightful. I've loved. I have a whole page full of notes that I've been writing down through all of this. So, two questions. One, I do want to get to at the end, like where people can find you, but how do I know that I need you? Like what is happening in my life, or what is happening in the lives of your clients, that they get to the space of, okay, I need you?
Yeah, I say the biggest thing is you've got all the language, you keep trying all the things, you keep adding things in, and somehow you're still not getting to like whatever it is you're trying to work for or work towards. So that's usually one of the biggest indicators. It's like you think that there's some magical, perfect thing that you need to do in order to achieve that, and that's not what it is. And so that's one of the big indicators. I think another thing is there's some kind of transition generally going on, whether it's identity or seasons of life or personally, professionally, relationally, any of those things where things don't really feel like they fit anymore. So it's, whether you have been doing everything that somebody or society told you was going to lead to success or happiness, and you checked off all the boxes again, and you're sitting there going like, what the hell, what is this? This is not what I asked for, but you probably still aren't trusting, like, what's the next move? You're probably doubting, like, there's got to be something with me or the way I did it. That's one of the other big indicators too. It's like, something's off and you can't put anything on it, but you're telling yourself it's you, and that's not the case. So that's another one of the big indicators too.
And when they work with you, is it, I mean, do you put a timeline? Is it, okay, you have a 12-week process? Is it that you're doing a kind of a broader sense of life coaching so that they work with you for 6 months or a year? Or what does that specific look like?
Yeah. So right now I have a 3-month coaching container where we meet bi-weekly. And it's a 90-minute session. And that allows people, because everybody, like, how do you meet people where they are without perpetuating the same vicious cycle, right? So it's like 90 minutes every 2 weeks. That gives us enough time to get in there and really work through some stuff. But a majority of the coaching is actually, and the growth is actually done outside of the container. So then on the outside, it's the integration, it's the implementation, doing the actual, like, quote unquote homework, and doing that for a series of 3 months, and then reassessing, like, okay, are we headed where we want to? Are we feeling more comfortable, or do we need to dive deeper in? Because I do a year-long package too, but my main container right now is that 3-month package. And then you still have access to me in between sessions, because we all need that kind of support, but at a very intentional way, because again, lead by example, quality of life. So yeah.
I love that. So if people are listening and they're like, yes, I'm answering yes to a lot of these things that Rebecca is saying, how do they get it? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I would say, like, the easiest and the most direct way is to email me at rebecca@mariavenus.com. But you can literally, like, any platform, I am Maria Venus anywhere. So whether it's, the website, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, like, I love a good DM just to even, like, if something resonated, or, this really spoke to me, or you are more curious. I love the relational aspect of things. So, like, reaching out to me in my DMs anywhere is definitely the way that I love to connect with people, and, see what's going on, what you're thinking, and whether or not we need to take things further. So yeah.
I love that. And I will be sure in the show notes then to put all of Rebecca's contact information. So anyone that's interested, or when they just want to say a quick DM, like, this was amazing, or have a question, or want to work with you a little more in depth, I will put all of that contact information in there. Any last thought, Rebecca, that you want to leave the audience with today?
Oh man, I would say, like, we didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but like 2024, that summer was like my best summer ever, literally, like, hands down, bar none. And a couple of things I did that year, which, to say them out loud, like, it's so fun. And also, like, sometimes I can see people like, I could never, like, wait, what? So I did a few different things. I didn't have a car at the time. I sold my car intentionally before that. So I biked everywhere for 9 months out of the year. And I'm a person that loves and requires a lot of movement, but also a lot of nature. So that biking made me not only be super intentional with my time and energy and my schedule, but also gave me that, like, pride in what my body could do, while also being in the sunshine, next to the water, in the trees. But the more fun part of that was, everywhere that I went for those 9 months, I carried bubble guns with me. And so I was on the trail, downtown, all over the place, had my bubble guns, 2 of them. And, like, there is nothing, well, maybe not nothing, but, like, I would say, like, bubbles are one of the things that humans just really, like, smile and appreciate, no matter the age. So that was something that was very, very joy giving. And a lot of
I
fun for me.
love that. I love that. And oh my goodness, I feel, Rebecca, like if we continue to talk, we'll have so many more synergies. I went car free for almost 3 years at one point as
Oh,
an adult. Yeah. And I
yeah,
have not
yeah.
full guns, but I have like little confetti guns that I have. So oh
Oh
my
my
goodness.
gosh,
Yours is
yes.
probably a little more
Yeah,
eco-friendly than confetti, but
yeah.
that is amazing. So I love the fact that you were bringing joy not only to yourself by the movement and the nature and
Hmm.
all of those pieces, but then multiplying joy
Oh
for
yeah,
everyone else. So
yeah,
love it.
for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, I think Rebecca and I could continue the conversation for a couple more hours. Maybe we'll have to do that on another podcast
Right.
sometime soon. But thank you again for your time today. Really appreciated all the things that you shared. Again, I will put all of your contact information in the show notes. So if anyone wants to get in touch with Rebecca, please check there. But until next time, remember, I am Rachel and I am celebrating you today and every day. So have fun, live well, enjoy.